guys, welcome to episode 1 of the In My Joyful Era podcast. I am so glad you're here. My name is Haley, and I am the host of this podcast. Now, before we begin, I just need to let you know that I have a golden retriever puppy that I am babysitting. So in the background, if you hear any strange noises, it is probably Daisy, the 6-month-old golden retriever, because we are puppy sitting at my in-laws, and she's absolutely adorable, but please excuse any interruptions that she might bring. So this is episode 1. I'm so glad that you are here. The purpose of this podcast is to bring the mission of the In My Joyful Era coaching business to life by connecting with women on a deeper level. Now, here's the thing about most coaches and their online businesses. They hold back their secrets to burnout and how to live a joyful life because they want you to pay for their services. Now, I get it. I own my own online business and I also try to make money on the internet, but I'm not the kind of girl who likes to hold back information. I want to be upfront with you. I want to talk openly with you. And that's because every woman deserves to live the life of her dreams. And I am here today to talk to all the women who are seeking new life, peace, and purpose. So many women are burnt out by doing everything for everyone and are just seeking solace. I hope that if you are someone who's listening today, that you find exactly what you're looking for in life and that this podcast helps you seek the work-life balance that you so desperately are searching for. Life is worth living to the fullest, and I want to teach you how to not waste another day of it. I want this podcast to provide a space that can be a place of peace, comfort, and just a breath of fresh air. Now, I want to start by talking about a LinkedIn survey that was taken back in 2021, which found that 74% of women say that they are very or somewhat stressed for work-related reasons. And I'm going to make sure that I link the article down below in the show notes if you're interested in learning more. But study after study online shows that women are experiencing burnout and stress at a much higher rate than men. And you're probably thinking, well, Haley, this is really bad news. And let me tell you, it is bad news. The burnout and stress that most women are facing is physically killing us. It is destroying our self-esteem, causing us to develop mental health symptoms such as anxiety and depression. And autoimmune diseases are on the rise. Cancer is more prevalent now than ever. So in all of this bad news, there is good news also in that women who are experiencing burnout are more likely to seek help. And we know as women that this is not the kind of life that we want to be living and that we need to make a change. So my dream is to live a life of peace and freedom and abundant joy. And I also want you to be able to live out your dream as well. Like, can you imagine living out your dream without fear or stress or anxiety? Like, what would that even look like for you? It is a good question to ponder, and I want to dive deeper into that question in another episode. But I think it's important to start off by just kind of introducing myself so that you can get to know me and my story and what brought me to starting In My Joyful Era. So I graduated college back in 2018, and I had a degree in education. And I was so eager to get into the field of education. Like, I was ready to be a teacher, or so I thought. To be honest, I think I became a teacher because that's just what I knew. My mom was a teacher, my dad was a camp director, and I was just constantly surrounded by kids 24/7. So if we weren't at school and I was working with kids after school, then we were at home, and on the weekends I was volunteering at camp. So even before I graduated high school, I taught dance lessons, led Sunday school, was a camp counselor, I tutored in math, gave flute lessons, and even co-taught a 6th grade language class as an extended learning opportunity when I was in high school. So education is all I ever did. And because I had my 10,000 hours of practice by the time I graduated high school, it seemed to make sense that this is what I would do professionally. And to be honest, when it came to teaching, I was pretty good at it. Now, not many of you know this about me if you know me in person, but I would actually get extremely anxious before stepping into a classroom. And this was true of student teaching, subbing, and especially when I started teaching full-time. I can't exactly pinpoint what these feelings stemmed from, but it was always present. And something about this career just didn't sit well with my soul. However, I ignored it all throughout my college and student learning experiences. On my first day of my first big girl job, I was teaching 8th grade. I woke up that morning feeling so stomach sick. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but you should know I'm a pretty solid girl, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've ever gotten violently stomach sick, but this takes top tier. And I learned to push down my anxious thoughts, forget about my stomach, and just move on. And I did that for 5 whole years. And I just pushed it down. And by doing so, those feelings actually led to depressive thoughts, to insecurity, and anxiety. And looking back, I taught because I thought I was supposed to. And just because I know now that this career wasn't for me doesn't mean that there weren't parts of it I absolutely loved. I have wonderful memories of working with some pretty incredible young people, and I am blessed to have nurtured and provided knowledge to students that are going to go on and do amazing things. And for others, I'm just so glad that I could be a positive influence on their life during some really dark times. I am all about creating community, creating deep connections, and learning alongside others, which made many parts of teaching very rewarding. And sometimes we forget that just because there are good parts of something doesn't mean that the whole thing is right for us. And it took me a really long time to think about that. So I don't regret the experiences I had working in public schools, but I realized that public schools were just not the place for me. And the changeover to learning about this in myself happened in 2 stages. The first stage was when I actually had a student shove me behind a door and tried to convince an entire class of students to trample me. I felt very unsafe for the first time in a classroom, and with fights breaking out, there was physical violence towards teachers. I felt very unsafe. This just really harmed my personhood. It harmed my soul. And those feelings that I had about, is teaching right for me? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Just snowballed into what I felt in this moment when this student decided to do that to me. So I needed to get out of that space. I knew it was not the place for me. And I thought, hey, let's just give it a shot somewhere new and see how it goes. So I left that school and went to teach 8th grade somewhere else. And the anxiety I already had about my career hadn't left me. My body didn't forget about the terrifying event that happened at the last school. And once again, the snowball kept rolling. And I was so overwhelmed. On top of all of that, at this new school, I had parents complaining that I was not treating their children with respect. Other teachers were saying that I was grooming children because I gave out chocolate as prizes. And the worst memory of all of my teaching experiences came when I had one of my students kill themselves. And I had had it. I just had it. I was done. My physical health was not great. I had been gaining weight throughout these 5 years, and I was in a caloric deficit. I was exercising, but I was still gaining weight because my cortisol levels were just so high. I wasn't sleeping. I had nightmares, and it was just too much. So parallel to all of this, I taught social studies, and I was really into the subject of psychology. So I had learned about some different psychologists who were writing about how past experiences shape our mindset as adults and how our brains kind of operate in different social situations. So I was really kind of invested in that world. So I was reading a lot of books, and in the process started a huge growth journey for myself. And I finally recognized for the first time ever that being a teacher was just not in alignment to who I was. Now, I need to have a side note here. I'm going to have a couple of those in this episode, but the first one is that if you are really good at something and everyone tells you that you're good at it, but it doesn't align to who you are as a person, you don't have to listen. You don't have to take on what other people tell you to do. Now, there is some positivity when people call out strengths in you, they see your interests, and they support you on your journey and helping you figure out what you want to do. But when people tell you what to do, that's different. So it's okay if people tell you, hey, you're really good at something, you should go do it, to not agree with that person. And it took me 5 years to get to that point. So what did I do once I had this epiphany? I had to learn more about myself and who I was. I needed some sort of outlet to figure out what my next move was. So I decided to go back to school. My college was actually offering this amazing program to get your master's in organizational leadership at a very good rate and within a year. So I went for it. And, sometimes in life, things just come our way and we need to recognize the opportunities for what they are and get on board. This was one of those moments for me. And so I finished my master's in 1 year. And at the end of that school year, I quit. Now, this is my second side note here, which is that I am not telling all public school teachers that they should quit if they feel overwhelmed, or they should quit if they're having hard days, because that is not the message that I'm trying to send. The message I am trying to send is that this is just not a place for me, and I knew it was time to leave. I had a couple months of interviewing with different organizations, and I landed my first job in the nonprofit space. And you guys, I loved this job. Things were going so great. But after about a year, I started recognizing signs of burnout in myself. Now, this didn't make sense to me because I loved what I was doing. It made sense to who I was, and the organization really let me work with my values in kind of bringing my passions for civic education with my leadership skills and my creativity that I love to bring as part of the table. So this was really strange for me. So I had to go on another educational journey, but this time to discover how to heal myself from burnout. What caused it? What got me to this point? And how do I move forward? Now, let's go back to my master's program for a second here, because you need to know some of the courses were about coaching. And I fell in love with the concept of coaching. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a passion for creating deep connections. So I decided to get a certificate in life coaching through the Life Coaching Institute. And it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. And you guys, I literally spent an entire vacation week just getting the certificate. And I was so ready to bring my skills to the table and to work with women on everything that I had learned about leadership, about burnout, about work-life balance. And it was time to start a business. So we called it In My Joyful Era. And for those of you who don't know, my middle name is Joy. And it is a word that means so much to me. It truly is my life motto. I won't forget, in college, my roommate took Christmas lights, and on a day I was feeling completely overwhelmed, strung the lights to read joy over my bed in cursive. And it was one of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me. And it's truly the picture I have in my head of what joy is. To me, joy is about knowing that everything will be okay, even in the deepest, darkest of nights and the brightest of days. Joy is the innate sense that all is well, and that we aren't ever really alone. And there is happiness in joy, of course, but joy hosts an entire array of emotions. If depression is a lack of feeling or sense of self, then joy is the exact opposite of that. And it is living life to the fullest every day and in every situation. So when I say I'm in my joyful era, I am talking about every day of my life. I may not always be a happy person, but I will always have joy. I will always be a joyful person. And I want to teach others how to have that same sense of joy as well. Because I was the one who was burnt out. I was the one who was overwhelmed and seemed to be lacking a sense of purpose. And I want to help other women find their peace, purpose, and balance. I don't want others to keep living in a way that I had been living. And now that I'm educated and trained to help people navigate change in their lives, that's exactly what I desire to do with my life. Okay, So we need to move on to one of my biggest feminist rants, and it actually serves as a huge motivator for me in this podcast. So the rant is, let me take a sip of water. Make sure to hydrate, guys. That my rant is that women should never have to choose between a career and living a fulfilled life. Let me say that again. Women should never, ever have to choose between their career and living a fulfilled life. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. When my grandmother went to high school, it was a given that she would get married, have kids, and take care of the household. She did not have a choice. That was just the expectation for her generation. Now, the feminism movement came along and there was a dramatic shift. And this is how I know that. When I went to high school, the plan was that we would all go to college and start a career. This was the expectation for my generation. And I love that the feminist movement has brought women into the workplace, but it seems like now having a big career is the only expectation, and we frown upon women who stay at home. But here's the thing. You are allowed to choose both. You can be a mom and a wife, and you can have a fulfilling career. My desire is to explore options for women and seek out ways that women can have the work-life balance that they so desire. For me, I found a job at a nonprofit where I am able to work in a hybrid office, and when I'm home during my off hours, I have the freedom and flexibility to start and run my own business. And that is how I'm choosing to live my life. And girl, you should be able to live your life in any way you choose to do so. If you want to be a CEO and a mom, go for it. If you want to be an English teacher and travel the world, go do it. If you want to be a stay-at-home parent, more power to you. If you want to work full-time and start a part-time business and a podcast like me, go for it. I'm so excited to be here in the space saying this because women for so long feel like they've had to make sacrifices in one of the two areas in order to have balance. And we need to change the narrative of what work-life balance means for women. And this is a societal issue. In this economy, women have to have full-time jobs in order to pay to have kids. And if there is a stay-at-home dad, maybe he can't because, once again, the economy is too rough that choice just isn't available. And society's viewpoint of how women work and operate in the workforce needs to change. And that is my biggest motivator for why I'm doing this podcast. And once again, I'm just so glad to be in this space and explore these questions and these thoughts together. You know, In My Joyful Era, the brand, it's all mine. And to be honest, it feels really good to have a space of my own to create and share and bring joy to the world around me. And I want to make a difference and empower you to make a difference in your world, whatever that looks like to you. So I would love to connect with you on Instagram at In My Joyful Era. And if this is something like this message resonates with you and you're ready to make some major changes in your life, I have 3 programs that you can find on my website at www.inmyjoyfulera.com. They are called Leading Her Way, I Have a Dream, and my personal favorite, Should I Stay or Should I Go, to help you navigate the beautiful, wonderful life that you want to create for yourself, whether that be in a position of leadership, whether that's you starting your own business, whether that's through your leadership development or through a business or a project that you want to complete, or deciding whether or not you should stay in your career. I would love to help you with all of these questions. So once again, feel free to go check those out at my website. And until next time, remember to keep seeking joy.